This is page 2 for the volume notes, and hopefully you felt successful completing the first page. As you take notes, remember to write down any questions that you have or any other thoughts that you'd like to share with me regarding these examples. So looking at the first example here, we have a rectangular prism. Now, volume of a rectangular prism is exactly the same as any other volume. It's still base times height. And if you do look at your formula sheet, you're going to see the formula length times width times height, just like that. Now, this situation is a little bit different from what we have on the front. On the front, we're finding the volume. In this example, we're given the volume and we need to find the value of x. And this is another reason why I always like to write the formula, is because I can now replace this v with its measurement, 396. If all you write down is this, it makes it confusing as to think about where does this 396 go. But if you write down the entire formula, it's more obvious that the v is what gets replaced here. Now looking at what I have here, I have 11, x, and x. So it's going to be 11 times x times x. Hopefully you guys remember what x times x actually is. And it is going to be x squared. Now to solve this for x, the next thing we want to do is divide by 11. So 36 is equal to x squared. Now hopefully you guys remember from solving Pythagorean theorem problems what to do next. We're going to be square rooting both sides. So we're going to get 6 is equal to x. If by some chance you don't know the square root of 36 on your calculator, at least especially if it's a graphing calculator, I'm going to press second, then the x squared button to access the radical symbol, and then I type in 36 to get my answer. And that's it. And I probably should have said that x is actually equal to 6 centimeters. So I'm going to write that down as well. Now looking at example 5, we're talking about a canister of oatmeal that has a volume of 28 pi cubic inches. The canister is 7 inches high, and we want to find out what is the diameter. Hopefully you know what a canister of oatmeal looks like, but if you don't, it's going to be shaped like this. And if you think about it, the first 3 letters of canister is can, so it actually kind of looks like a can, although for oatmeal it's actually made out of cardboard, typically. So we know that for this canister of oatmeal, it's a cylinder, so the volume is going to be pi r squared h. The volume is 28 pi, so that's going to replace the v. Pi is always pi. We know that the canister is 7 inches high, so that means 7 goes here, and we're trying to find the diameter. Now, I am going to do this. Diameter and radius are not the same thing, but I'm going to leave this as an r squared. I'm not going to try to confuse myself by putting something in here that means something different for diameter. So I'm going to leave this as an r squared, but we're going to come back to this after we find out what the radius is. So now looking at this, I'm hoping you guys recognize that on both sides of this equation we have pi. So what I'm going to do is divide both sides by pi to get rid of it. Gone and gone. So now we have 28 equal to, and I'm going to put the 7 in front because I think that's how we're probably more used to looking at this. So from here, we're going to divide by 7. So now we have 4 is equal to r squared. And again, if you need to, although hopefully you don't, square root of 4 is going to be 2. Now again, going back to what the question is actually asking, we want to find what the diameter is. Now, if you know the relationship between diameter and radius, this is not too complicated. The radius is the distance from the center to the edge of the circle. The diameter is going to be from edge to edge, and it has to pass through the center. So all of this is going to be the diameter. So to get the diameter, we're going to double the radius. And it's going to be 4 inches. Don't mind that. And again, if you have any questions, make sure you write a question over here on the left. Moving on to our last example, we're going to find the volume of the pyramid. Now it has a regular base, so you always want to pay attention to this, and you also want to make sure that you take the time to notice what kind of base it is. So this looks like a square base. And I'm saying square and not rectangle because if it's regular, it's going to be a square. Now volume is still 1/3 base times height because it's a pyramid. Now the base is a square, so it's going to be 12 squared. And I'm going to put it in right there because for squares it's pretty easy. You just take a side and you square it. Height is going to be a little more complicated. If we look at the diagram, it gives us the slant height. It doesn't actually give us the actual height. So if I drop down the actual height and I connect it down here, what kind of figure have I just created? Hopefully you guys can see that all of this together makes a right triangle. So I'm going to redraw the right triangle on the bottom of this problem, sort of the bottom. Here's the 10. We have the right angle in place. Now all of this is 12, so this piece here is going to have to be 6. And then we're going to solve for the height of the pyramid. Any ideas? Good. Pythagorean theorem. So I have h squared plus 6 squared is equal to 10 squared. If you need to, pause the video so that you can calculate this on your own and then double check your answer. Hopefully you've just resumed the video and you found out that the height is 8. So now I'm going to take this height and put it over here. Alright, so now we have all our values in place so we can calculate the volume. So we're going to have 1 divided by 3 times 12 squared, so I have a nice fancy button for it, and then times 8. And we get 384. So our volume of this pyramid is 384 centimeters cubed. Now, if you have any questions for me or for yourself, please make sure you jot down some questions on this in this column on the left. And now please write a summary or two about what you've learned in today's lesson. Make sure you don't write down something like, I learned about volume. Be a little bit more thorough with it.